I am the next emotion, raging hate. I pour these winds upon you, see stone rain. I'm destined to be a legend, living on the realms of time. Should your message cross me, I vow your soul to mine. I am the serpent's coil, with comfort in my grip. I'll spin a pack of seas so high, even iron ships. I am not of the tropics, the other side of hell, where mercy's cold, hope is so high, and let's I will lie to your masters and test them to come in. They'll be a part of history, only I will win. So come ye one, come ye all, see my November sky. I will deceive you, give no relief, there ain't you survive. I am the serpent's coil, comfort in my grip. I'll spin a pack of seas so high, consuming iron ships. I am not of the tropics, the other side of hell, where the seas go, hope is so high, living let's tell. And when I I gotta make my run now that it's your road. Some 250 bucks and to my toe.
David always takes a bit of persuading to play that song because it's so out of character with him, but it's so in character with the event that we're trying to commemorate. David, by the way, is a fifth-generation mariner. His ancestors started the sailing trade on Lake Huron in the central portions, and his great-great-grandfather, Captain John Minister, for his referee ability, MacDonald was the captain of the Azov, a famous lumber hooker which has a whole evening story to itself. So David has well suited for his role as helping to carry on this tradition. Bud Robinson, whose sequence of slides you just saw in black and white, completed each one of those paintings and the few colored ones thrown in as part of his repertoire. And if you want to see his work for real, it's now showing at the Elizabeth Art Gallery in Goderich. Just check your program for that and some other visual arts things that are going on as part of this commemoration. I want to start now with a little bit of visual stuff, and I'm going to ask David to join us as we go through in a couple of spots. I think the first one is going to be I'm going to ask you to do all hands, and the second one I'm going to ask you to do is nobody claims me, and I'll figure out where it is when I watch the clock here to make sure we're not here after the library closes. We have a number of sponsors. You can add yourself to the list, however, and make a contribution in various ways. You can certainly support the St. Joseph Historical Society, who's the key sponsor tonight, by contributing to their needs. Anytime. I'm sure Pat and others would be glad to take your money. You can also make a donation to any of the events that are celebratory of the Great Storm Memorial, the museums, the art shows, the cultural events. And if you want to be part of the commemoration for the next 100 years, you can commemorate by donating to the memorial. I'll show you how in just a minute. This remembrance is taking place across the entire Great Lakes Basin. It's just not local. It's happening everywhere. And there are invitations we've had to turn down as far away as Milwaukee recently, but we just couldn't attend because it's just too far out of our range to get there. And we are, in fact, going, and I think back for the third and fourth time to the American shore in the cities between Port Huron and Detroit over the next few weeks to participate in activities there. Locally, in Goderich, where the headquarters are at the Royal Canadian Legion on the upper left, we're also showing at the museum, and our partner museum in Port Huron is shown down there on the right with the 40-foot wave banners that we may get to a little bit later. And there's just a ton of stuff. If you're interested in our new book, it's at the back. It's our chief fundraiser. If you're interested in hearing the story of the Great Storm from the descendants' point of view, that is the descendants of the victims themselves. The second book shown right there, Dear Ella, I hope she's not like this in the fall, is being published in mid-October and will be available for sale at that point. If you're interested in that postcard, which was written by a crew member in June of 1913 to his girlfriend or to a lady friend, he says exactly what it says on the top. I hope she's not like this in the fall. And there you see the Wexford all covered with ice in a December storm after she came in successfully in December of 1909. And as I said, the memorial that's being built is the 100th year monument overlooking the harbor, being placed in the same location as the 50-year monument that was opened there by the Ontario Historic Sites and Archaeological Board back about 50 years ago. And if you want to donate, checks are payable to GLS 1913. It's very straightforward, and there are tax receipts available through the Huron County Historical Society. We are recreating the memorial service that was held after the storm at Knoxburg Presbyterian Church, not the same building, the original one burnt down, but the same property location on Sunday, November the 10th in the afternoon at 2 o'clock. We invite you to join us. It's an interfaith service, and there are half a dozen of the local ministers participating on behalf of their various congregations, and we're trying to replicate as much as we can the original order of service as it took place in then. Next week, we're laying a wreath at the site of the shipwreck Wexford with a number of the descendants of the victims of that ship on board a tugboat from McDonald Marine, weather permitting. And we will have the great nephew of the captain, Bruce Cameron, who's also his name is Bruce Captain, and the great nephew of the wheelsman, Orrin Gordon, whose name is also Orrin Gordon. It's going to be quite a moving ceremony. The follow-up is at the Lambton County Heritage Museum for a reception. And we will have our closing services at the Tomb of the Unnamed Sailors at Maitland Cemetery, Goderich on Sunday afternoon, weather permitting. The commemoration is, in our minds, significant, and you can probably tell from Duncan's remarks and the way Duncan and his crew are going at it there, and the way David sings, and what I'm trying to share is we have quite a passion for it. And it is to us very important, but it's proving to be important to lots of others. There's a satellite map of Hurricane Sandy, by the way, and I mentioned already the parallel. There's that map that I was carrying around that you look at. And if you want to get a picture of how they fit together, all you do is move Hurricane Sandy inland, and you end up with it over the Great Lakes in the same fashion as the Great Storm descended in 1913. And there's that map again, just to show you the comparison. If you want to play with the storm, go to the NOAA Great Lakes Storm site on your computer, and they have modeled all of the winds and the waves and the temperatures and the snowstorms over that 3-day period, and you can play with them in an interactive fashion and recreate the models as they have done it for you. We hope to have those available at our show on November 8th and 9th in Goderich. I thought I'd draw that to your attention. The impacts, of course, are not just lives lost, although that's the most significant. It's not just ships lost, although that's pretty important. The landside impacts are often not talked about. It's the families left behind and the horror stories that have persisted through the generations since 1913 that are the most troublesome. What happened on the land is really not been written about. In a letter written to me, and this is a copy of it in 1999 by an old man who lived up by Barrie, his name was Robert Townsend, he said to me, 75% of the standing pine at Georgian Bay and Lake Superior were uprooted. That'll give you a suggestion of how bad it was. David, maybe while we're buzzing through these slides, which are largely self-explanatory, you could do Hands of Time for us, a significant song because many of the watches and pocket watches of the bodies that washed up on shore, their watches and pocket watches all stopped at 01:25. Go ahead, David.
Zero 125, such a sea its strike. Silence the ships, bell and shine. It stopped all hands, the hands of man, even the hands of time. Holy hands, you could not touch this city of shock and awe. Those of its maker, the hands of the great, the powerful hands of God. With these hands for the souls of man, the spirit of the ship and crew. Out in the storm, Fear no more, you're home, your soul's renewed. All the chief's souls was his tempest told. Only legend lived to tell. The rage would come, cold and deep, as all hands joined, the silence fell. Mystic it was that brought these souls together in time and space. Into his hands, his holy plan, into his heart safe. And into these hands were the souls of man, the spirit of ship and crew. Out of the storm, fear no more, you're home, your soul's renewed. Our loved ones gone from this place shall never be in vain. All and souls now at peace are those who still remain. And in these hands were the souls of man, the spirit of ship and crew. Out of the storm, fear no more, you're home, your soul's renewed.
And as I'm reviewing the ships that were sunk and all hands lost, I also want you to be aware, as we've already mentioned, of the numerous casualties that occurred by ships being cast up on shore and stranded. And of course, there was little loss of life, and most were lucky, like the Northern Queen, as is in Duncan's play, and the crew survived. But even there was loss of life and great loss to the shipping. But not nearly all of it was recorded. Much of it went unrecorded and is only found in the columns of the local newspapers as you were able to look back and as we have not been able to look back. So there is only a partial record. David is going to sing for us now as we move towards closing a very sad song that reflects on the loss of life called Nobody Claims Me.
I am the son, mother who died young. My father passed on when I was 21. My brother died, don't speak nor do right. We held out over pennies and pride. Fell out over pennies and pride. So I packed up to life. I see back at night, signed on to this letter the very next night. 6 months I disappeared, the good captain I revere. One of those memories I'll always hold dear. Memories I'll always hold dear. This sure is me life, a heaven to wife. No fight, planes me. My family's crew on these great lakes of blue. No fight, blames me. Nobody blames. The glass, it seems low, I've seen many blow. This one feels bitter, she's seeking my soul. Your beauty turns dark in this wintry churn. The light ships long gone o'er the rail of our stern. Long gone o'er the rail of our stern. This ship is me life, heaven white. Nobody blames me. My family's crew on these Great Lakes blue. Nobody blames me. Nobody blames me. Where's one star when your ship breaks apart? Such a sad sight, won't you see? One great big sea, I further in. Once more, my heart forsakes me. It's cold, so goddamn cold. Nobody blames me. My family, my crew, and they're all gone too. Nobody blames me. The war turns to calm, my will is all gone. Nobody blames me. Water seeps in, my lake it grows dim. Still nobody blames me. Nobody blames I somehow watch from above as the bodies wash up, alone in the sand shales of stone. God reach down square, you might find me there. Still nobody blames me. Nobody blames me. I am the son, mother who died young. My father asked not when I was with one.
Thank you, David. Those are very moving pieces, and they mean a lot. I want us, if I can, there we go, to take a tour along the starboard side of the Wexford in a video just taken 2 weeks ago as we make our closing. The wreath will be placed right at the bow, which was the very first section you saw. It's made of copper, and you caught a glimpse of it in the last slides I cut out. It's a huge copper wreath with laurel leaves, and the date's 1913, 2013. It will be unveiled at the surface. The family members and others will be tossing white roses, one for each crew member. And then a team of divers will take the wreath below and fasten it with stainless steel plates and cables to the forward section of the ship. And it will be mounted there, we hope, for the next 100 years.
When is that again?
Beg pardon?
When is that again?
September the 28th at 10 a.m. with a vessel leaving from Grand Bend with a place for Heatherboa at about 8 o'clock. Perhaps not. We'll talk to you later. I won't spend time going through the events. You see them in the program. We want you to help us by attending them. We want you to be active by being as supportive of the other events as you have been supportive of the dinner theater by St. Joseph's Historical Society. There are multiple opportunities to commemorate this event, and it is the most important maritime event on the Great Lakes in 100 years, just as that storm was the most significant event in the whole recorded history of the Great Lakes. The Great Lakes were and are, even though we don't think of it, the front door of our communities. Today they have been lost because times have changed and the way of life has changed. But John Galt made his first appearance in the Huron Tract via the lake. He came by boat. William Dunlop spent much of his time on the lake because it was easier to move back and forth to carry supplies between Goderich and Fort Gratiot at Port Huron on the American side by freight canoe with the local natives. And he used the lake more than they used what would become later the Huron Road. And our little communities, whether you're talking about Grand Bend or St. Joseph and the docks that were built by Narcisse back after the turn of the previous century, or the enterprises at Bayfield and the smaller fishing harbor at Goderich, predating the large industrial harbor now, and the little harbor at Kintail, which none of you know about, the working harbor at Port Albert, and the working fishing harbor at Point Clark were all the beginnings of our communities. And it is not only our duty, it should be our honor to celebrate that maritime heritage. Thank you, and good luck with all of the stuff that you're doing in this end of the county. Let's spread the celebration and the remembrance all the way along the highway from Port Huron to Tobermory. Thank you.